this is Karen Sunt with Talking the Five, and we are doing our political spot called The State of the Five today. And we are here with Chris Will, who is running for House Representative, Libertarian Party for District 25?
26.
26.
So many districts.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, Chris.
Well, my family's been here since the 1880s. I was born here. I've got 2 kids. Lived in this house for well over a decade.
District 26 being Mesa.
Mesa, Tempe, Salt River Indian Community, yes, and a smidge of Phoenix and maybe a couple blocks in Scottsdale, but yeah, it's all over. And see, I've been a bookseller and a librarian and a credit analyst and a potter, and now I work for Walmart because the economy happens.
Well, you know, that's where some people are. I mean, you are definitely someone who represents one of us.
Well, yes, I can definitely represent a lot of people in my district. But
Well,
even business owners, because when I was a potter, we were, my husband was an engineer, but we had a home business. So I have experience with that too.
Well, tell us what got you into running for office.
Well, it was kind of odd. People would be standing, you know how people stand around in lines and see what's in the magazines and start talking about, that sheriff. and they kind of bitch sessions about that. And I would join those. But I would also come at it from a point of view of procedure and civil liberties and the Bill of Rights, and people would suddenly start shaking my hand and saying, "You should run for sheriff." And I'm like, that's the wildest thing I ever heard in my life. No, that's just crazy. But after over a dozen people said that, I'm like, maybe it's not that crazy. It is an office. And I went down just out of curiosity to the Maricopa County elections office. Just what does it take to run for office? Say, sheriff. They're going, what? It's like, yeah, whatever, any, district councilman and stuff. And so I came home with a pile of paperwork. And
I know about that paperwork.
Oh, yes. And yes, you came close. Next time you'll make it. You'll get on the ballot. But yeah, a pile of paperwork. And well, I guess I could do this. And then in January of 2008, I was shooting the breeze with somebody at work, and she said, "You can't run for office. You don't have any money, and nobody's ever heard of you." And before I could say, "But $500 exemption," the musician in the next aisle said, "Don't tell her she can't do something. She'll go and do it." And the next day, I had my everything, and I was collecting signatures to get on the ballot.
Well, that's a pretty good story.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, everything's kind of a story with me.
Well, now tell us a little bit about the exemption, because I did see that too as an option, but I went with clean elections just because I thought that would be a way for me to make it, because I don't have any money either.
Oh, yeah. Clean elections, it looks like a great, and for people that believe in that and think it's great, it is. It can be a great way for you to fund your campaign and try to have everybody on, in theory, on a little more even keel playing field. I go with the $500 exemption because that cuts out all of the almost all of the paperwork. And you can decide at any time to go, well, I want to spend more. I suddenly find I can gather more money, and I've got a couple more friends to help than I thought. So we'll fill out all the paperwork and start, making all the filings that we need. Yeah, every month, tons of filings. Sometimes you feel like you're making you're filling out more paperwork than you are running for office. And it's all with that, it seems like to me it seems like it's almost harder to run on your own.
Well, yeah, that was kind of what I got. You really do have to have a team to win. Really, in order to win, you can run. Anyone can run, but to really win, you have to have a strong team.
And I've had a couple of people say, well, you can't win. Well, the only way that could really be true is if you weren't running. If you don't make it on the ballot, of course you can't win. But there have been times when people have, for personal reasons, dropped off the ballot. They can't go on, sickness in the family, stuff like that. Or people die, or people get indicted and they can't run anymore.
Oops.
So sometimes the last man standing is the only person left to vote for. And sometimes those are the people that win.
Okay, tell us something a little more cheerful than that. I mean, what kind of ideas are you trying to bring forth if you were to win? And there's a good chance you could win, right?
Yeah. Well, there's always a good chance to win. But I'd like to see. There's a couple of ideas. Well, for one thing, of course, my mind goes blank all of a sudden.
It's television.
Of course, that's how it works. And you'd think I'd be used to this after a while. But there is something called civil forfeiture that I would like to see disappear. It, on the one hand, it sounds like, hey, this is a great way for law enforcement to raise funds for all the cool toys they need to fight crime. On the other hand, you don't have to be guilty or even have any connection with any crime to have your stuff confiscated. Just a reasonable suspicion, and then it's up to you to prove that there was no reasonable suspicion, and it usually costs more than the confiscated property is worth to get it back.
Yeah, and I have heard people, struggle with that too. And I mean, here we are. We live in a country where you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. So I don't know how that is quite constitutional, to be quite honest.
Yeah, so far it's kind of the proof is, objects don't have rights. Suddenly, they can be guilty. The objects are now guilty, but you have to. Yeah, it's this kind of weird, convoluted legal logic that most of us have problem wrapping our brains around.
Well, okay, so you would help us with that if you got into office.
Yeah, I would very much like to help with that.
So tell us a little. Is there been excitement with your campaign? And now. I did a promo on Sign Wars, and so my whole thing is I'm seeing people cut out eyes on people and heads off of people's signs. How do you? I mean, you don't have any signs, is that correct?
That's right. Well, $500. Since when you take advantage of the $500 exemption to run, that means you're not going to spend more than $500. On the one hand, that's good. You can do that with your own money. I could do that on a credit card if I still had one. Well, yeah, I do. But you also have to be very, very careful with how you spend what little money you have. You can collect, you can take donations. That's fine. And when I ran for state representative before they changed the lines, and this was District 25, most of what I spent was donations. It was great. And I still didn't spend a whole lot. But you have to get creative. You have to find other ways to get your name out there. And signs, I didn't mind losing the sign option, because I don't like looking at them myself as a voter, as a resident. They clutter up. We're supposed to be this great tourist destination. And we've always got something going on, and people are always putting signs out for the next election. And that doesn't always look good for us, especially when it's an especially contentious election. And it's kind of dirty laundry going on.
Yeah. There's been some real strong sides going on. It's amazing what people do. I mean, and now with clean elections, what people got to realize is that when you damage one of those signs, you're actually damaging possibly taxpayers' money.
Probably taxpayer money's paid for those. And that is also still contentious. There's some people that say, I don't want my tax money going to that. And some of that is prisoners' money. Some of that comes from the prisons, from the prisoners themselves who can't even vote. So there is representation without, or there's taxation without representation, which is another really hinky kind of side to the issue.
It's interesting you point that out too. Yeah, no, it's a good conversation here because I don't other candidates don't really talk about some of these things. But now, as a libertarian, why did you chose libertarian? Was something you've always been?
Kind of, yeah. Once upon a time, well, I was Republican because my parents were Republican, and then somebody was accusing me of being a communist, and I'm like, what, are you insane? So I had just moved, so I had to change my update my voter registration, so I put Tsarist in there, and I got it back, my voter card, and I said, see, I'm a Tsarist, and he's like, see, that proves she's a communist, and everybody laughed at him. And then I moved again, and before I got around to changing it, I was on Mill Avenue, and somebody was doing voter registration drive, and I'm like, sure, cool, I need to update it anyway. And they're going, so what party are you thinking about? And I said, what party are you? And she said, Libertarian. I've never been Libertarian before. Let's be Libertarian. And it was in the early days of Libertarian. So what's Libertarian all about? And she told me, and I went, yeah, that pretty much sounds like it. Civil rights, civil liberties, fiscal responsibility. And I thought, well, that's pretty good. Let's try there. And I've stayed Libertarian ever since. When I first moved back home, well, I put Libertarian on when I moved back into my mom's house, and it went through it didn't recognize it, and it went through as independent. Then I moved in here, Libertarian, and it went through as independent. I'm like, no. So I had to make sure it went through as Libertarian before I could run as a Libertarian.
Well, yeah, I'm sure that would be a requirement.
Yeah, you can vote anything you want, no matter what party you are in the general election. But if you want to run, you got to make sure you're kind of running with the right party. Well, what you're registered as.
Well, yeah, I actually had to switch to independent to Republican because I just realized I was not going to make it as an independent. It just wasn't going to happen. But I am a conservative.
Hurdles are horrible.
I know, as an independent, it's just horrible. But I am on the conservative side, and so I just felt like that's the direction I needed to go. Plus, I had more friends on the Republican side we're in Pinal County.
Yeah.
But it's funny that you said that you did that this was all redistrict.
In 2012, it was redistricted. It's like, redistrict. They did the redistricting. And it was up until the last minute, too, for the election. They kept arguing about the district lines, and we weren't always sure which district was where, and they were finishing it up. It was crazy.
So did this used to be 25? Because I used to live here, and maybe that's why I keep saying 25. Because I live right just down the road.
Because in 2008 and 2010, it was 25. And 25 is now that away. Yes. And now this is this is 26. The north end of Tempe is 26. And if you go up Alma School, on the left side, on the west side of Alma School, it's 26. On the right side, it's 25 until you get to the river, and then it opens up into the Salt River Pima Indian community, and that's 26 again.
Wow. So do you get how do you get any supporters from the Salt River tribe?
I'm still working on that. They're very quiet and private, and I don't want to bother anybody. But on the other hand, I've got to go in there and go, hey, rattle a cage here and there, and please, please. Oh, that could sound horrible. No, I've got to knock on doors and say, please, please, pay attention to me. But I work there too at that Walmart, and a lot of people know me, but don't know I'm running.
Well, now they do.
Yes, yay! This is a good thing.
Well, thank you so much. Is there anything that you would like to tell everybody? What you would like? Anything special or?